Darek sat in the uncomfortable chair, Richard sitting beside him with far less poise. This wasn't the first time Darek had sat before dangerous foes on many occasions, but he suspected that these guys thought they were something special. Special or not, they were in the way of his slash, and soon they would learn the price of interference. The man sitting across from him looked straight out of an action movie. His head was shaved, his mustache was thick and bushy, and his eyes looked crazed like he'd had too much caffeine. He was wearing green digital print camo, but his patches were strange. Darek was pretty sure he knew who he had run up against, but one could never really be sure.
So, you attack a member of this foundation, you interrupt our operations, and then you demand a meeting to what exactly? Do you imagine we'll just give you what you want?
I could say the same for you. You've interrupted our slasher. You have let our extras get away, and you have hampered my ability to obtain the asset I was after. In my eyes, you are as guilty of obstruction as I am.
The man with the mustache rolled his eyes.
Please. The Foundation doesn't have to answer to you or your organization. We are not some thrill-kill group like you are. We serve the greater good, and I won't let you get in the way of that.
Richard shot Darek a look, clearly wanting him to stop poking this particular bear. But Darek was unimpressed with the man's bluster.
Oh, you should be very afraid of our little organization. We may not have the numbers that your foundation does, but while you have a bomb, we have a surgical scalpel. We can slice with accuracy, and when we're done, there'll be nothing left.
Bushy mustache smirked.
It takes a lot to scare me, kid. I've been threatened by the best, and you ain't the...
He stopped and looked down as the phone on his desk began to ring. He gritted his teeth and looked down before lunging for it as he realized who was calling. Darek only got a momentary glance at it before he picked it up, but he was pretty good at noticing details. It looked like Mustache's boss was on the phone.
Sir, yes, I have them. They were attempting to infiltrate.
He stopped as the person on the phone said something too low for Darek to make out.
What? Sir, you can't be serious. There's no way you could.
He listened again, his eyes growing wider by the minute.
Pictures? Pictures of what?
His phone chirped again, and he looked down as his eyes got even wider. Whatever he was seeing, it clearly scared the shit out of him.
There's no way. There is no way. He must be bluffing. There's no one who can't...
He stopped. He listened, and then he handed the phone to Darek.
He wants to speak with whoever is leading the slash.
Darek took the phone.
This is him.
Stand by,
said a deep voice that sounded more than a little cowed. The phone clicked, and then a very familiar voice came oiling through the phone.
You lost her, Darek.
Darek had to make an effort to not have his teeth chatter through the phone. It was like an Arctic wind through the speakers, and he knew that somehow the director could see him. He could always see them, always knew where they were, and his knowledge of their activities was unrivaled. Darek had read 1984, and the director was like Big Brother on steroids. The feds had nothing on the old man, that was for sure.
A momentary lapse, Director. I'll find her. She hasn't escaped the slasher yet.
I'm not convinced, Darek. For my finest blade, you certainly have lost your edge. Perhaps it's time that I set a new master blade.
Darek growled deep in his throat.
I said I would get her.
The voice on the other end of the phone took an even colder tone.
Mind how you speak to me, Darek, or I'll cut you open and watch you bleed.
Darek swallowed his anger, but it was a bitter pill indeed.
My apologies, Director. I believe she has gone into the cave. I'll find her and her friends. Don't you worry.
He could almost hear the director grinding his teeth as he contemplated.
Not good enough. You can come back with Maya or not at all. Alive as well. If you can't bring her back alive, then don't bother returning. I'm calling back the shadows as well, Richard too. You will catch her by yourself. You will bring her back to the organization, and I will make an example of her for the entire cast to see.
Darek breathed in through his nose, steadying himself. The slash had just become that much more difficult.
Do you understand me, Darek?
Understood. Script updated. I won't fail you, Director.
See that you don't.
And the line went dead.
It's so weird.
Lena said as they walked out of the graveyard.
It's so quiet here.
Oh, thank God.
Connor said, and Maya glanced over to see his knuckles white on the handle of the fire poker.
I thought it was just me.
Nah,
Jack said.
there's no sound here. I've been listening for birds or bugs or anything, but it's all gone. If we hadn't been talking, I would have been afraid I'd gone deaf.
Maya had realized it pretty quickly, but it went deeper than that. There were none of the usual people things either. She hadn't heard a car horn, or smelled exhaust, or felt the vibrations of a plane going over, or anything to let them know that anything existed here. The world is a place full of noise, full of life, and without it, the silence is nearly deafening for ears that are used to listening for it.
You don't think that there was some kind of disaster while we were underground, do you?
Don't see how. For one, we were only underground for about an hour. And for two, if it had been any kind of bomb, then the tunnel would have definitely collapsed.
Well then, Toto, I don't think that we're in Kansas anymore.
They were walking up a paved road towards who knew what. The signs said that Joppa was about 10 miles from there, but she wasn't sure that they wanted to walk that far. To a house, maybe? That would seem to be the best route. The organization probably wouldn't attack them if they were in a city. Probably. The organization had been known to do a high-risk slash, but then the scripts were written weeks in advance. They wouldn't have time for a rewrite on this occasion, and she knew it. They would have to improvise, and that would get dicey. The organization was little more than an urban legend, something whispered about at sleepovers and around campfires, but a high-risk slash like that could open them up to discovery, and the director certainly wouldn't want that. No, their best chance would be to get back to college so that she could disappear. This experience made it pretty clear that the organization was not going to forgive and forget. Maya was going to have to live like a nomad, it seemed, always on the move and never stopping. It wouldn't be hard. She knew how to fake papers and could get money if she needed it. The grant that paid for her tuition and room dues was something that she had set up a few years ago. It was money funneled from an account that she had set up in the organization, and most cutters had one. If you were truly in it for the thrill, then you were exactly what they were looking for. But most of them realized that the party would only last so long. So they stole from the people they killed, and they stored it away for the time when they would have to disappear. Maya had a lot set back, and if she was careful, it would last her a few more years at least. Maya shook those thoughts off. That was future thinking. Right now, she needed to think about getting back to a place where she could regroup. Whatever came next would come next.
Look!
Lena said, pointing up the road.
Maybe they have a phone we can use.
Connor had remembered to scoop his cell phone up before they fled, but he seemed to be having trouble with reception. He said he had no bars, which was weird because he'd had at least 2 the whole way there. Hopefully, these people would have a landline or maybe some Wi-Fi so they could message someone to get them. Either way, they couldn't be here long. Maya didn't want more blood on her hands than she could handle, and losing her friends would be a step too far. The ranch-style house was dark, but it was evening, so that wasn't too surprising. They might just be an early-to-bed kind of family. Jack banged on the door, calling for help, but the house was quiet. No surprise there. Everything was quiet here. And as Jack banged on the door, Lena put her hands up to the window and looked in.
That's weird.
She breathed, and Maya came closer. She squinted in and found a man sitting at the dining room table. He had a cup of something in front of him, and he was leaning back like he might be snoring or sleeping. He wasn't budging at all when Jack knocked on the door, but the longer she watched him, the more Maya realized that the man wasn't sleeping. He wasn't breathing, for one, and his arms hung limply at his sides for another.
Connor,
Maya said, and the boy jumped a little.
let me see your fire poker.
Okay, but why do you...
Maya rammed it into the corner of the door jamb and the wood splintered. Jack jumped back, looking at her in confusion as she pried the front door open like it was no more than a stuck locker.
Whoa, what the hell? This is not going to make a good first impression on whoever is in there.
In my experience, dead people don't care much when you break into their house.
The lights wouldn't work, but there was a fireplace and a box of wood. Lena had a fire going in short order, and Jack found a lantern in the living room. Maya went to check on the man at the table and confirmed him to be dead. She didn't know how long he had been dead for, but it couldn't have been for very long. There was no bloating, no rotting, and he looked like he had just died moments ago. He was wearing a uniform, a custodial jumpsuit for a place called Joplin Aerospace, and it looked like he had just sat down to have a morning cup of coffee before work and just died. They used the lantern to search the house, calling out for others as they went, though they needn't have bothered. There was a woman in bed, but she was dead too. The 2 kids in the brightly painted rooms, also gone. All of them looked like they had just stopped all of a sudden, and now they were nothing but giant dolls. Maya covered them in sheets, hoping that it wouldn't disturb any evidence.
What do you think?
Lena asked them when they came back into the living room.
A gas leak?
Maybe for them?
Jack said as he hooked a thumb at the back door.
But that dog in the backyard didn't die of a gas leak.
They went to look at the russet-colored mutt, and Maya couldn't see any signs of a fight or starvation. He was healthy, his coat shiny, and his body showing lean muscle, and there seemed to be no reason for him to have died. He had simply laid down to sleep and never gotten back up, just like the people in the house. The longer she looked at the dog, the more certain she felt that something very strange had come to pass.
We have to get out of here.
Really? In the middle of the night?
Yes.
Maya said, suddenly glancing around as if anything might fall on them at any minute.
We need to go immediately before whatever killed these people kills us.
I doubt whatever killed these people is still around. If it was a disease, it probably won't last after death. If it was a gas leak, then we would have smelled it out, and if someone killed them, then they clearly have moved on. We can at least rest until morning, can't we?
Maya didn't even wait until he was done talking. She was walking around the outside of the house and back toward the street, hoofing it up the road as she made her way to Joplin. She was no stranger to death. The two of them had been friends for years, but this was different. There was no blood, no wounds, and there was none of the usual bloating or discoloration either. This was no sort of death that she had ever seen, and that scared her more than anything.
Maya!
Jack called as she heard the sound of his feet approaching quickly. Connor and Lena were coming up too, breathing hard and looking worried. Maya kept walking, the three of them coming even with her as she went up the road. Maya didn't want to stop until they found more people. Living people. Finding them would prove that the people behind them had died of something unique, something special, and that it wasn't a fluke.
Where are we going? You do know, don't you?
Joplin. We're going to Joplin.
Any particular reason why?
Connor asked, the pavement gritting beneath their feet as they went along. She searched for something other than her need to look at living people.
I think we need to get back to school. If we do, we can contact the authorities and let them know all about what happened.
Think they'll do anything?
I doubt it, but they might. You never know.
Maya doubted that the cops would table with the organization, and if they did, they would lose. The organization didn't take kindly to people sticking their noses where it didn't belong, and they lived to sort out interlopers. Most agencies would understand this and not bother, and Maya hoped that the police around campus would be one of them. She had quite enough blood on her hands already.
Look at that!
Lena said, pointing beside the road. Maya turned her head, but the geese were hard to miss. About 8 of them, all laying beside the road in a near-perfect V formation. It looked like they had just fallen out of the sky like that. And the strangest part was that nothing had been at them. These were large, healthy Canadian geese, and it was weird that nothing had been eating them. There were no bites, no damage, other than what they had sustained in the fall, and it made Maya quicken her pace.
What do you think happened?
Maybe they got caught by a plane or something.
Yeah, but they weren't all cut up or anything. It looked like they just fell out of the sky.
Something's off here. Those bodies that we left behind weren't normal either. They look sick, and they certainly didn't look like something had killed them, so how the hell did they die?
Maybe we'll get some answers when we get to Joplin.
Jack said, the 4 of them heading unerringly toward the town. If Maya had any ideas, she kept them to herself.
Darek, wait!
Darek glanced over his shoulder as Richard came running up the road toward him. The shadows had departed at the director's order, but it appeared that Richard was a little slow to follow suit. The army guys had left, pulling up stakes and heading out, and as the helicopters had taken to the skies again, Darek had suddenly wished that he still had a couple of the shadows. It was going to be a lot of work to dig out the cave, and if he meant to finish before the lambs got away, he would need to hurry. They had the advantage of time on him, but he'd catch them. His life depended on it.
Shouldn't you be heading out? The director made it pretty clear that I had to do this alone.
I was just going to ask how you intended to get to them.
Through the tunnel, if I have to.
Darek answered, pouring on more snark than was strictly necessary.
Well, luckily for you, I might have a better way.
Darek turned around, giving the little techie his full attention.
Do tell, Dick. Do tell.
Richard furrowed his brow, clearly not liking the nickname.
The caves are beneath the cemetery, correct?
One would assume.
Well, then there may be a way into the caves to the cemetery. It's limestone, which is incredibly porous, so the idea of a way in through there isn't unfounded.
I suppose that while I'm up there looking for the entrance, my prey will just sit there and wait for me to get inside, right?
In all likelihood, yes. The cave's been sealed up by these lovely fellows. They won't have much of a choice, since you say their tunnel's collapsed. So I believe they will search for an exit that isn't there. If you get inside, you could very well have them trapped.
Darek nodded, liking the sound of that. He could always go back to the cabin if that didn't work out. If they really were trapped, then he needn't be in a hurry. He could catch them at his leisure, and the thought of them tunneling back out was laughable. More likely they would just bring it down on themselves, and then they would still be dead. Either way, he'd have them in the end.
Thank you, Richard,
he said, heading toward the cave instead.
If I ever become the director, I'll remember you fondly.
Richard nodded, but secretly thought that that would be a dark day for the organization indeed.